In their basic manual of fly tying, Paul Fling and Donald Puterbaugh call this wet fly attractor a salmon-fly type. I'm tying it on a number 10 3x long hook with rusty brown thread. I'm bringing my thread up a little bit closer to the bend of the hook because my tail fibers are a little bit shorter than I could possibly use to tie them in closer to the eye. But this is 8 to 10 fibers. I didn't actually count them, just kind of guessed. Taken from the tail of a partridge. So this is the partridge tail feather that I took them from. This tail feather is too stiff to use as a hackle, but the fibers are long enough that I can get a tail that's not quite the shank length, but close enough. So I'll tie those in, winding back to the hook bend. It's called a salmon type fly because it's tied with a floss body. I'll be using yellow floss, and it does have a silver rib. It also has a front hackle. I will also be using a partridge feather for that. This feather is taken from just close to the tail where there are more fibers on the feather for a fuller hackle. This tinsel is a gold-silver tinsel, so I'm going to be tying it in silver side towards the hook. That way, when I wind it or wrap it, I will twist it and turn so that the silver is showing. This is an extra small tinsel. I've done a couple of different things to tie in the floss, and what I have found is that if I leave the floss on a bobbin, I'm going to tie the floss in along the hook shank, and probably wouldn't need to go all the way back up to the end like that, but that'll build a little bit of bulk on the body. This has a tapered floss body, and so I've discovered that it is more efficient for me to wrap that taper if I leave my floss on a bobbin. But in order to do that, I need to take the tie-in thread off. So I'm going to just put a whip finish, or a whip knot, I guess, not a finish, but a whip knot. And I will be reattaching that thread, and then I will wrap. It gets a little more efficient to wrap using the bobbin and untwisting the floss as I wrap. And the whole idea in this fly is to create this tapered body. So if I twist a little bit counterclockwise as I wrap, then it will spread the floss and make it lay flatter. That'll give me a cleaner body, and then I can create that taper by wrapping back over and build the thickness of the body. Now I want some taper, but not too extreme. I've discovered that the tinsel doesn't like to stay put if the taper is too extreme. So just wrap up, wrap back, and just keep an eye on keeping that floss spread so that it lays flat and creates the taper. Come up to where I'm going to tie in the hackle and then wrap back, creating the thickness and just a gentle taper so that I have slightly bigger body up here at the thorax, and then tapering back to the tail. So then I will also tie this floss off with a whip finish, or with a whip knot. Hold that in place. Then I'll reattach my rusty brown thread. I'm using a 140 denier rusty brown. Wouldn't have to be that, but I think the brown works well with the partridge feather. So I have a matching head to the hackle. Then I need to tie in that rib. So because I've attached it with the silver side towards the hook, when I begin to wrap and it turns, then it wraps with silver side out. And I need to wrap this fairly tight so that it stays in place. Try to keep my spirals evenly spaced. And bring it up here to the head, where I will catch it in with my thread, wrap 3 over the top, change hands, pull that back, catching wraps over the top of that tinsel, and then I can clip the tinsel out. Then I have prepared this tail feather. Now Fling and Puterbaugh tie their hackle in this direction from the butt end. For whatever reason, I like to tie it in by the tip in a soft hackle wet fly fashion. So I have separated out the tip, clipped it short. The other skill that is emphasized in the Fling and Puterbaugh book relative to this fly is to tie it in with those hackle fibers laying down backwards towards, or laying back towards the bend of the hook. So while I wrap, I just grab those and pull them back, and then when I tie it off, I will also pull back on the fibers. So 3 wraps, again, just kind of standardized with 3. It seems to work well. And then lean everything back and wrap up over the end of that stem, tie in a head. And now this is a pretty heavy stem, but I'm going to weaken it and wiggle it and try to helicopter it. See if I can snap it out of there instead of cutting it. I really prefer it to snap out because it's a much cleaner detachment, but this is a stubborn, heavy stem or quill. It just doesn't want to weaken or pull out. So I may have to resort, no, it just broke off up. I have to resort to trying to get in there and get it cut as close as I possibly can. And see, it still leaves just a little bit of a stem end there. Maybe we can wrap up over that and try to hide it. Well, I guess it's time to finish off this fly, put a whip finish on there and put some head cement. Alright, what happened there? Okay. And I did catch one. Okay, I pulled it out. The head cement that I'm using is a thinned goop. So I've got it in a bottle, and that needle point just grabs a drop, and I can just drop that onto the head. This is goop that's been thinned, and I can just keep thinning it to the consistency that I want. I like it when it's very viscous. So a wet fly attractor in a Salmon-Fly type style from Fling Puterbaugh's book, The Basic Manual of Fly Tying.